And awesome. Now the room is filling up with our participants. Hey, Mary. Hey, Elizabeth. Colleen, Carol. 925 area code. We see you, even though we can't see your picture. Cam's here. Hi, Cam. I'm so glad you could join us. Beth, Leisha, Sarah. Oh, you got a lot of Sarahs. Sandy, Tammy, Tara, Tracy, Trina. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Just waiting for the room to fill up and everybody enter. We just learned that everybody comes in alphabetical order. Here comes some more. So welcome Deborah and Dolly. Got 2 Elizabeths at the moment. Amber, Donna. Niner is in the house. Gina. Gerald is here. Hi, Gerald. Thanks for the plug for Wendy in the last session. I saw it in the Q&A. And we had Henrietta. Oh, hi, Henrietta, all the way from Sweden. Yay! Henrietta was a moto traveler. She stayed with us several years ago on her southbound trip through South America. Awesome. Joyce, Judy, Karen, welcome everyone. I think everybody's in now. So I am super excited to introduce Wendy Crockett. She is not only the 2019 Iron Butt Rally winner, but just an amazing woman. I've just fallen in love with her, so pardon my girl crush. She's been traveling in Mexico on a long road trip with her 5-year-old daughter, which I applaud you for, because we just got to start them young and get ladies to be enthusiasts early. And I'm just going to let you take it over. I'm so excited to hear what you have to say about long distance riding. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Great, thank you for having me. So right up front, I'm sorry everybody, this is a little echoier than I would have liked, but hopefully it's tolerable for you and I can get some good information across. So again, my name is Wendy Crockett. I do a long distance endurance riding is really my big thing, but I've also done a substantial amount of traveling, close to 1 million miles on 2 wheels now, most of it solo. I own a motorcycle shop and I have been a factory trained technician for a little over 20 years. So that is where I am coming from. And I really like to kind of leave it open. I really want to encourage you guys to ask questions because you know, this is a short time and I can talk all day long about endurance riding stuff. So I want to make sure that you guys are getting your questions answered. So please feel free to just, you know, jump in anytime with your questions, and we'll make sure that we hit all the bases for everybody that's in the audience today. So thanks again for coming out. So I'm gonna start with kind of the basics. I've done the Iron Butt Rally, for those of you that aren't aware, is an endurance competition. The tagline is 11 days, 11,000 miles, but basically it is a North American wide scavenger hunt. And everybody plans their own ride, everybody sets their own goals, whether your goal is to win or, you know, finish well or just finish. So we have people that finish with mileages, you know, as low as say 8,500 miles in 11 days, all the way up to the highest ever, I think, was approaching 14,000. That was a year that was real interstate heavy. This was a real backroad heavy kind of year, but I did 12,999 miles, and I knew I was going to be that close. But I was so ready to be done. I thought I would love to do a lap around the block and round it out to an even 13,000 miles. And I was ready to be at that hotel, and I wish I had done it. But there we are, 12,999 miles in 11 days. So there's a couple of, I think we'll probably hit some of the big myths around endurance riding. One is, yes, you can on whatever bike that you have right now. You know, a lot of people have the impression that you need something specific. You need a sport touring bike. You need a big displacement bike. You need all sorts of farkles and gadgets and toys and technology. You don't. I mean, especially if you are really just thinking about getting out there for your first saddle sore, or really, you know, just kind of expanding your miles out there. You do not need anything special to do that. If you are on a bike that you're comfortable on and you enjoy being on, go for it. We've had people do iron butt rallies, you know, the 11 days, 11,000 miles on Ninja 250s, and like a 1972 water buffalo. And I see mention of Kathy Davies. She is amazing. She is, I mean, she probably is half my size, half my height, half my weight, and did it on a Goldwing, and just incredible lady. But yeah, you know, Kurt Warden has done several on the Ninja 250, and then you know, upgraded to the Versus this year. If you enjoy riding it, go out and do it. I tell you what, you know, Kurt has his bike tuned. So I have, I ride a 2005 Yamaha FJR. I have about closing in on 300,000 miles on that bike right now. And I run auxiliary fuel on it. It's not necessary. I did my first iron butt rally. I can't remember if I mentioned, I've done 5 iron butt rallies. My first one I did with no auxiliary fuel on that same bike. But Kurt actually gets better fuel economy out of his Ninja 250 with only stock fuel than I get out of my FJR with an aux tank. So seriously, get on your bike and go. But the other, I think, major misconception is speed. That we're all out there just, you know, hair on fire all the time. And that's not the case for a number of reasons. I mean, when you think about, one, just, you know, the loss of fuel efficiency when you're running at that high of a speed, it's just not really worth the trade-off. Sorry, I got distracted. I saw the the other question about preparing for the IBR. But, you know, in order to do 1,000 miles in 24 hours, you're talking about less than 15 hours moving at highway speed. So if, you know, you're on the interstate doing your ride, keeping an average of 70 miles an hour, that's under 15 hours of riding. So that's a lot of time. You have 10 hours in there to gas up and have traffic jams and stop for a nap and stop for food. So it really is not, there's nothing about this that necessitates dangerous speeds or, you know, riding when you're tired, riding in, you know, unsafe conditions. It's really more about being efficient when you are on the bike, but more so being maximally efficient when you are off the bike. So knowing how to handle your gas stops and how to handle your food and things like that, so that the time that you are spending not moving is limited as much as possible. And that was really one of the first rode in rally. My first rally ever was the 2009 Iron Butt Rally. I'd never ridden in another rally, but I thought I could do it, and you know, why not aim big, right? So I tossed my head in there and I finished pretty well. I finished 26th. And then started doing smaller rallies. And one of the next rallies that I did was a 1,000-mile, 24-hour Cal 24 rally. And I tell you what, there was nothing went right. Nothing went smoothly. I was screwing everything up. I was having trouble handling my waypoints, so I didn't get out of the start in time, and wrong directions everywhere. And it was just, I just felt like I was failing on every level. and I ended up coming in 6th place out of, 65 riders or whatever. And one of my guys who's now a very good friend said, you just keep the wheels rolling. And that's the difference, that things will go right, things will go wrong, things will not go according to plan, and you'll have to change your plan. But as long as you're keeping your wheels moving, you are making progress towards that goal. And that's the key is, when I'm ready, I've got everything that I need to stay on the bike and minimize my stops and handle, because for all the drama that I'm handling on a ride, other riders are, dealing with the same thing. Other riders have got traffic and misdirections and, all the rest of it. So yeah, you keep your spirits up and keep those wheels moving is the best way. And don't be tempted to resort to speed to solve your problems, especially even in certified rides. If you're looking to do an actual certified ride, it's more and more, if you are submitting a ride that required an unreasonable amount of speed to accomplish it, they're gonna decline your submission. And if you're in an event, there's a lot of things, especially on shorter events, like they will have you take your license and registration and they will seal it in an envelope and put a special seal or a sticker or something on there. And if you come back to the starting line and that seal is broken, you're going to lose a lot of points, because that means somebody's pulled you over and asked to see your license and registration. So there's a lot of, and then with tracking as well, there's a lot of things in place to try to slow people down. It's not about the speed, it's about the puzzle. It's about, being out there and working the scavenger hunt. So I saw Amy asked how I prepare for the IBR. So that's a great question that really leads me into kind of like my major keystone stuff. My first, so my normal diet is, fairly low carb, but just kind of meat and veggies and water, not a lot of other stuff. But my first Iron Butt rally was like, great, I'm on vacation, right? So, I brought very little food with me, and it's all about gas station hot dogs and, having, soda and candy and coffee to help me get along. And that was a terrible idea for a number of reasons. One, whatever your normal diet is, I would recommend, if you're going to make a change before something major like the IBR, change it well in advance. So I started, at the beginning of the year, at New Year's, with no sugar, extremely strict diet, no coffee, no alcohol, etc. Anticipating having a rally season this year. Turns out we're not looking like we're going to have much of a rally season, but it's always really good to make those changes well in advance so you're not freaking your body out. If your normal diet is gas station hot dogs and you haven't made this change ahead of time, stick with gas station hot dogs so you're not going to be dealing with the ramifications. There's a lot of physical ramifications if you're making big changes on the fly like that. So I would recommend kind of sorting out your diet a good bit ahead of time if you're going to be doing a big ride like that. And then I have gotten to the point where I bring almost everything that I'm going to consume during those 11 days, I have on the bike with me. And the only exception to that, like this 2019 rally, the only food that I ate that did not come from stuff that I packed with me was food that we ate at the checkpoints. There were 2 official checkpoints, and they feed us very well there. And again, sticking with the protein and the veggies. And then I had we get points for taking rest breaks. And they'll give you a window, and you have to document that you started your rest break within this window to claim those points. And I was in the middle of nowhere in Canada, and I desperately needed a place to take my rest break. So I bought like a chicken wrap at a Tim Hortons to justify my being there in this Tim Hortons in the middle of the night. And then I low-key went and took a nap in the corner of the restaurant. But other than that, I carry with me I like perky turkey jerky. It's not overly sweet. It's very soft. You know, any jerky like that, if you get it too gnarly, right? Even in the middle of nowhere, you especially have the Tim Hortons. And they were very kind, even though they only spoke French. They seemed to be amused by the weird, smelly American sleeping in the restaurant at 2 a.m. But something like that, you know, some good proteins you can get, you know, if you're into it, like the tuna pouches, things like that. That's just good, lean protein. I carry dried, unsweetened, unsulfured fruit, apple rings or apricots, things like that. And that kind of serves as my sweet pick-me-up if I need to change it up a little bit. Lots of nuts, almonds, like unsalted or 50% salt if you can, because otherwise you really start feeling it after a few days. You know, macadamias, cashews, that type of thing. And then I like some good nut butters. There's some Justin's nut butter I like quite a bit because it doesn't have a bunch of preservatives and that type of stuff added into it. And that I can eat on the fly. I can open up the little single serve packs and eat those really easily on the fly. So between all of those things, and then I have about a gallon of water. I have 2 hydration jugs on my bike that I can drink while I'm riding. And between that and then every so often, there's a product I like called Sport Tea. That's a like an electrolyte replacement drink, except it's all herbal. There's no sugar, anything like that in it. And I can cold brew that in my hydration tank. So when I'm expecting one of those days where it is just gonna be wicked hot, like water is not gonna do the job, pickle juice or Sport Tea are good go-tos. So that's how I keep my diet going. It is super, super important. You know, a lot of people feel like, especially on the shorter rides, like you want to neglect your hydration, right? Because what goes in has to come out, right? So, you know, they feel as though if they are not taking in too much water, they're going to save themselves some stops. It is not worth it in the long run. It is super important to stay hydrated. And you just, you know, you find that balance between, if I have to stop, I have to stop. You know, if it is ridiculously hot outside and I just need to keep taking in fluids, that's what's going to happen. But you find a good balance where you stay hydrated, but you know, aren't having to stop constantly. And because, you know, what starts happening is when you're not eating a good diet, when you're making sudden big changes to your diet, when you're neglecting your hydration, it becomes really difficult for you to gauge your fatigue. And so that is another, you know, really critical thing is what happens is as you become overly hot, as you become overly tired, you start losing the ability to gauge how hot or tired you are. So you reach this point where, you know, you kind of, these signs that you want to be alert for is if you are having trouble maintaining your lane position, if like you're forgetting to turn your high beams off for oncoming traffic, if you're having trouble maintaining your speed, if you find yourself drifting faster or slower and you're constantly having to correct yourself, Those are all signs of fatigue. But the big one is that you have difficulty making simple decisions. So, you will find, God, it just seems like burdensome to decide whether I'm going to get off on this off ramp or the next off ramp to get fuel, that type of thing. So once you have reached that point, it becomes difficult to identify that this is a problem. And so you have, let's say you're eating a bunch of junk food. You're going from one candy bar to the, to the full sugar sports drink to the coffee. And so what you end up doing is chasing those sugar rushes. So it becomes really easy to miss what is a sugar crash, where you would have energy, you are not necessarily fatigued, and what is legitimate fatigue. So again, you start throwing weird things in for your body to process. You don't take in enough water, you take in the wrong kinds of fluids, and it's really working to mask that fatigue, which is ultimately your first job should be managing your safety, managing your fatigue on the road. Everything else is, a bonus. Everything else, you'll live to attempt that ride another day. So definitely that is what made some huge differences for me in terms of then identifying, for me, I am a morning person. So I can ride, say, 20 hours, 22 hours, stop. I know that when the sun goes down, say, 9 o'clock or whatever, my brain starts shutting down. And it's not that I am tired, it's that I've kind of watched the sun go down and my brain's just beep. And so I know this about myself, having removed the caffeine and the sugar rushes and everything else. I will plan that into my day. If I need to stop and take a stretch and, just engage a gas station clerk in conversation or something for a few minutes, that'll be when I do that. And then I can get going again, and I'm usually good for a good chunk of time after that. But the next time that I start feeling tired, that is when I am tired. That's when I stop for, a good nap. If I can, I will aim to set my timing. So let's say I'm going to bed at 2 o'clock and I can wake up at 6 o'clock, and I can wake up with the sun, and that resets me. I know a lot of people have the exact opposite problem. They watch the sun come up and it makes them want to go to sleep. So, what works for me isn't necessarily what is going to work for everybody, but the critical thing is removing all the other, as many other irritants and disguising factors as possible, so you can identify in yourself, what's fatigue. And I've seen a few incredulous comments about the pickle juice, but yeah, you've got the sodium in there, and the different little minerals, sometimes a little sugar, but it really does a great job of replenishing you. And you can get that as well in like little packets, similar to like an emergency, something like that. So you just do that. You toss it in a water bottle on the trip. It's really easy to carry, and it does a good job. So as far as the tools that I use for routing, Amy was asking. So I have begrudgingly changed from Streets and Trips over to Basecamp, because Streets and Trips was discontinued a few years ago, and I like what I like, and I was really confident with it. I'm good with Basecamp. I'm getting better with it. But more and more. So I run 2 GPSs. I have a Zumo 665 and a Zumo 595. So a little bit older, but they're getting the job done. But me, as with many other people, are starting to branch out to other technologies. Phones are getting so good, and I can have Google Maps, which now incorporates traffic information, that's giving me much better real-time information than what I'm getting necessarily even out of, you know, the Zumos. Some of them have the option to do like XM traffic and weather and whatnot, and can incorporate that into your routing, but it's not nearly as real-time as what people are getting out of their phones. So more and more you're seeing people running little tablets. And so I have my primary GPS that will have my whole leg on it, from this checkpoint to the next checkpoint, or this checkpoint to my next major time limited bonus. And I might have 5 or 10 bonuses in there. And that doesn't get touched. 2017 cost me a very good finish. I finished 7th, but that's not nearly as good as I would have, because I broke my rule and I was monkeying around in that, and I inadvertently switched the order of 2 of the critical bonuses, and it really screwed me up. So I have my secondary GPS that I use for the what ifs. Could I add this in? What happens if I take this out? Where's the nearest gas station? That type of stuff. So I fool around with all my little what ifs just on my secondary. But what I did more so this year is I had my whole leg in my primary GPS, and I routed point to point using my phone. And that was, I mean, especially like on the East Coast when there's so much traffic consideration and it's just so dynamic all the time. That was really helpful. So I think we're going to start seeing a big shift to that kind of technology. It's getting better with offline maps and that type of thing. So we'll see. I have been looking at tablets, and, you know, weatherproof tablets are getting cheaper and faster. So we'll see. It's an interesting time. That being said, there are still people that do a darn good job rallying with paper maps. You know, the shorter rallies, 24, 36-hour rally with a paper map. Yeah, don't let it stop you if you don't have a GPS. Especially when you got your phone, you've got a great little computer in your pocket. I have, Paige was asking how I get to the starting point. I have only ever ridden to the starting point. So like this year, from when I left home, got across the country to the starting point, did the whole rally, and then rode home. I did something like 18,000 miles in 2.5 weeks. But a lot of guys do ship or trailer to the starting line, and the explanation that I've heard is I don't drive my race car to the track, and that does make a lot of sense. You get your bike all set up, and you want it to be 100% set up and ready to go when you get there. Nobody's going to give you a hard time about either way. It's just my preference to ride. What I find on like the super long rallies, I've done not just the Iron Bart rallies, but I've done several 10-day, 10,000-mile rallies. And that first night is the hardest for me. It's like getting my body to accept that we're doing this again, and changing the whole schedule up. So I like to ride to the start, and I'll do, like I did 1,600 miles in about 21 hours to get to the starting line this time. Which was actually really good for me, because it was like getting that first day of the rally out ahead of the rally, just kind of getting back into the routine. So to each their own. There's no right or wrong answer there. Elizabeth was asking, do I listen to music? I do. I have podcasts, and I used to do XM, but now I just download a whole bunch of podcasts, and I have a lot of music I listen to. But the theme of the rally of this year in 2019 was the road less traveled. So it was, by its very nature, a lot of very small roads, a lot of technical roads, and it was such a fun, engaging rally that I very rarely turned my music on, which is great. I mean, that is a sign of an amazing rally when you're so engaged. And I get along those lines, you get a lot of people that are like, why would you do this? What a waste. Look at all of these places you've been by and you never get to enjoy them. But I think a better way to think of it is, you've got 2 weeks for vacation. Think about that place by home, like your favorite little spot, your hole in the wall, your best road, your best restaurant. And then imagine you have an entire massive community of people with all of their favorite best spots, and those all get thrown together, into this bonus pack where, you can choose to go for points. You can choose to visit interesting places. It's like you are showing up and having somebody else plan 90% of an epic motorcycle vacation for you. And it's just up to you to kind of, fine tune that last bit. But I have seen so much incredible stuff, so many amazing things that I never would have seen. Lots of stuff I've gone back to visit, plenty of stuff where in order to get the points, you're walking through the museum, you're taking a tour, you're taking a SkyTram ride, you're shooting a squad assault weapon. I mean, all these oddball things, like, it's not stuff that we would necessarily know about or seek out in our free time, but have had such a wonderful time. So yeah, you have those events that are so actively entertaining that I rarely turn on my music. When I do, I have a playlist put together that is the most wildly divergent collection of music. And I've had many people that are like, yeah, sure. And then I turn it on and they're like, I think my head's gonna explode. You have to make it stop. I can't go from Pantera to Patsy Cline. It does not compute. But I have selected specifically just all stuff that I can dance on the bike to, all stuff that I can sing along to. When I turn my music on, it's because I want to, stay engaged, give my brain something to do. So, I really like my selection of weird, crazy music to, keep me going on those long stretches of interstate. So the sleeping, I normally am a very light sleeper. Roberta was asking, how do I manage sleep? So I have found that I do better, even if I'm only going to get a handful of hours of sleep, especially if I'm only going to get a couple of hours of sleep. I do better in a hotel because then I am not, you don't have bugs crawling on you and you're not always listening for footsteps nearby. And that type of thing. One thing that I would say is something that I learned early on is not to make hotel reservations. And, it's kind of one of those things, some events, the Iron Butt Rally, you don't get your you don't get your bonus locations necessarily far enough in advance that you really be making hotel reservations. Other rallies are different, that you can get them far in advance and kind of gauge out your stops. And what I found is when I have a hotel reservation somewhere, I will push myself to that hotel reservation. And so I don't want to be pushing myself to that hotel reservation. I want to be listening for signs of fatigue. And when I am fatigued, I want to stop just right now. I don't want to have the conversation with myself when I am reaching that point of being too tired to make intelligent decisions. Well, it's only 100 miles. I'm just going to push 100 miles because I have a hotel reservation down the road. I don't do that. When I am ready to stop, I'm ready to stop. And if I can't find a hotel when I'm ready to stop, I absolutely do Iron Butt Motel it, sleeping on the bike, next to the bike, that type of thing. I sleep fully geared up. If it's cool, I have my heated vest, I'll sleep right next to the bike and have my vest plugged in. And that is twofold. One, it's, it kind of keeps me safe and my helmet is my pillow. But it also kind of I don't think I'm really immediately identifiable as a woman sleeping on the ground when I am fully geared up next to the bike. And I've never had anybody hassle me. A couple other tricks that guys use: movie theaters. If it is hot, especially, you're going across Phoenix in the middle of the summertime or whatever, and you just need to ride out that hot period of time, go buy a ticket to a cheap movie and go sleep in the theater because it's air conditioned and it's quiet and it's dark. So that's a good one. Something else a lot of guys do, late night diner or a truck stop, something like that. Order your food, give the wait person a generous tip. Say, I'm going to set my alarm for 20 minutes or 2 hours. Please have my food ready in 2 hours. And I very, very rarely have heard about guys having any trouble with that. Most of the time, especially, you're doing a 24-hour diner in the middle of the night, they're super cool about it. The handful of times that I've done it, it's really kind of this novelty, this, weird person sleeping, in their gear in the corner. Generally, it's funny how much being on a rally emboldens you. I mean, I don't think any of us would, be like, I'm going to go buy a movie ticket and take a nap in real life, or, go in just to take a nap. But we become so emboldened somehow in the course of a rally that it's really fun what you find, what you experience, what you get from other people. I mean, there's so much, so many cool people in this world that you interact with when you kind of take down that the veneer of normal life. So those are a couple of cool ways to handle if you just need a nap when you're on the road. But I do also, let's see, about the safety aspect. Let me ask Shaw Marie's, can I talk more about the safety aspect? As riders, are we mentally processing all the what ifs? How do you stay present 100% of the time? And that's where, I try to walk the line between, with the podcasts and the music and things like that. I don't ever want it to lull me. If I have my music on, I want to be actively engaged with that. It's doing a job at that point. I don't ever want it to become background noise. We have enough din in our daily lives. I ride to get rid of the din. I ride so that just all this crap in the world just fades away, and I have this moment that it is the here and now that I'm focusing on. So I try to keep from reintroducing din, but if I need something to keep my mind engaged, absolutely, that's when I will. I'll employ those tricks. I like doing math games, running through if I'm adding in this bonus, if I'm taking out this bonus, am I 5/8 of the way through my ride? If I go another 100 kilometers, how far will that get me? What's kilometers converted into miles? Just, these nonsense exercises that you put your brain through to really, kind of keep present, to make sure that you're aware. I really make a point of doing all my scans, making sure that I'm regularly checking my mirrors, checking my blind spots, seeing who's around me. Something else that I like to do is like big muscle kind of workouts on the bike, off the bike at gas stations, that type of thing. It's easy to stretch over the seat and, that type of thing while you're gassing up. But I like to use the wind to, kind of stretch my arms, twist around, stretch my back, stick my legs out, and kind of do reps. And that gets your blood flowing. That kind of gets your keeps things moving, and that really helps too. If you find you're just slogging down interstate. And hopefully, especially if you're doing shorter rides, if you're doing certified rides, set it up so you're not slogging down interstates. Set it up so that you're not, riding into the sun and kind of having these other irritants and distractions and, whatnot going on. But, sometimes you end up in that position where you've got a lot of interstate, you got a lot of Florida to get through. So doing that, just doing big motions and, keeping the blood moving, counting through those reps. And I'm doing 10 reps on this side, and then I'm doing 10 reps on this side. And it helps pass the time and keep you engaged with what's going on, as long as you're just not doing that to the exclusion of paying attention to what's going on around you. And that really helps in terms of, keeping your, it's very easy in the course of 11 days to have your things start to atrophy. So it's good as well. A lot of riders do kind of modified yoga type stuff on the bike. Just, you want to keep active. You want to make sure that what you are putting in your body and what you are asking of your body keeps you going. So that's very helpful. Yeah, and there's Judy had pointed out with the keeps your blood from clotting in your feet, keeps your legs from swelling, just like being on an airplane. On an airplane you can get up and walk around once in a while. We don't quite have, and again, I mean, just depending on the event, like this year's Iron Butt Rally, there's a ton of hiking. I can't even guess, maybe 20 miles or more of hiking. There were hikes that you get to the waypoint that they provided, and it's a 5-mile hike down the trail to actually score your points. So that was very, very cool too, because that kept your body and your mind engaged in a very different way rather than just sitting around. But yeah, Shaw Marie, a lot of people say, she says she has trouble with zoning out when there's music, and a lot of people are definitely the same way. I know a lot of the international riders on the Iron Butt Rally, on these bigger rallies, never have any sort of distraction because they are so busy with all of those other kind of little things that we take for granted. Once you're a bit of a more experienced rider in general, think about some of the things that fell away from your active consciousness that you were super aware of when you were an earlier rider. And a lot of the international guys are kind of almost in that early rider mindset where they're so busy processing how different US, there's no room in their brain for music or podcasts or anything else. They don't need any more, they don't need diversion or distraction, because they're making sure they're staying on the correct side of the road and processing how the road rules work. So, it's definitely different for everybody. And then it changes over the course of our riding careers too, as you're, comfortable with your bike and comfortable with the miles and that type of thing. What you enjoy is definitely going to change. Let's see, Margie, I plugged my first tire 2 weeks ago. It was on the touring bike, and although I used a gummy worm plug, I was uncomfortable with it on the touring bike, holding up fairly well. I've run through, so I'm a mechanic for a living. I've run through a lot of different types of plugs. I will tell you that I carry darn near everything with me on the bike. If I can conceivably change it on the side of the road and save my rally, and that includes a stator. I carry a stator with me because I did have to change it on a rally one time. So if I could do it, I come prepared for it. I don't like the mushroom style plugs. What I found is those are most helpful for punctures. They are not helpful with slices. And then if you start having like a little bit of leaking, or if you're not able to, some of the smaller tire pumps that you carry with you on the bike aren't able to inflate a tire up quite up to what spec would be on some of the heavier touring bikes, especially if they're, calling for 42 pounds of pressure or whatever, and that your pump maybe only goes up to 35. Those mushroom plugs can fall out, and then that leaves you in a worse situation. What I would recommend, Margie, is if you want to keep that tire, if you have a lot of tread left, that puncture is not in the sidewall, get a quill plug. You can either, buy one at the auto parts store, bring it to a shop, ask for a quill plug. And what that is it's a flat patch with a plug in the center. It's installed from the inside, so the tire has to come off, but that's considered a permanent repair on that. So between the patch and the plug, that is a permanent repair. You don't have, like on the gummy worms, which is what I use. Those are great. I rode up to a Nuvik, which is like riding on 700 miles of broken beer bottles. So it's fine as long as all the beer bottles are laying flat. But when you catch them on their side, you're getting big slices. And those gummy worms are great because you can cram 3 or 4 of those in there and solve your problems. It's not a permanent fix though. And ideally your top speed is limited to 55 miles an hour until you either get a new tire or get a quill plug in there. And that'll help. But I've done it, I had a blowout, like a severe blowout, and that's a whole nother long story, in the middle of Saskatchewan on my first Iron Butt rally. That was a ton of fun. But other than that one, I probably plugged 2 or 3 tires on Iron Butt rallies with sticky worms, and they've got me where I've needed to go. So I've never DNF'd an Iron Butt rally, and I've, knock on wood, haven't had a tire keep me out yet. So yeah, custom seats, I use a Russell DeLong, hands down. If I had to pick one thing to pick, to retain on my rally bike, 100%, it would be my Russell DeLong seat. And don't, I'm not talking custom, I'm not talking like Corbin, I mean like Russell DeLong, the Mayer brothers, there's Rocky Mayer, full on custom to your butt. So I shattered my pelvis in a motorcycle accident, and I sit kind of wonky side saddle. I did a ride-in appointment with Russell DeLong, and they actually, my seat is wonky sideways to compensate for how I sit. And that is absolutely 100%. In fact, now that rally season is a giant question mark, I just sent my seat into, after I've got about 275,000 miles, butt miles on my Russell DeLong. I just sent it in to be recovered on my 300,000 mile bike. 100%. I'm going to keep that seat in top-notch shape, because that is absolutely worth the investment. So that's what I would recommend there. Paige was asking about seats, and there's a lot of other, Bead Rider is a really good one. People constantly, I have an FC1 that I also do big miles on, and I have a Bead Rider on that. People are always making comments about how it's like a taxi cab seat, right? But it's super nice. Like you can shift around, it keeps the air flowing. That's really important, is that we keep dry, like, the hygiene on the longer trips. It's super important that you not get swamped. But doing like monkey butt powder and that type of stuff is not good, especially on the long term, because you're wet and then you're adding powders to that, and it creates this paste. Get some good base layers, get a good seat. It makes all the difference in the world. I ride with LD Comfort base layers, no powders, and my seat, and I am good. I finished the Iron Butt rally, had a good night's sleep, got on the bike the next day, rode all the way, a few thousand miles home, a circuitous route, and I was super sad to be home. Like, I did not, at no point was I like, I'm in so much pain that I just want this to end, you know what I mean? So let me quick, I know we're running short on time. I could talk about this all day long. Let's see, shoulders tense up, that's a big one. Shannon's asking about shoulders tensing up. Are we running out of time?
We are. Answer your last question, and then real quick, and then we need to wrap it up. Thank you.
Yep. I'm lucky enough that I have a fuel cell that I'm able to do good twists, but that's the big one. Try to, be aware. We kind of tend to sit with our hands on the bars, and you kind of zone out or tense up. That's really going to make that problem worse quickly. But do those side to side stretches, reach across yourself, do that type of thing. I don't cruise control. I don't need one. I don't like one. I don't use it a lot, but I do have a Go Cruise. So I just set that, just the throttle lock for when I need to do those stretches to keep that tension out from between my shoulders. So, yep, that's a tough one for everybody for sure. So, thank you guys so much for showing up, and hopefully we'll see you tonight in roll call, and we can maybe answer some other questions.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. And can you all see why I have a girl crush on her? She's amazing, right? And the good news is, if you haven't gotten enough of Wendy, like I haven't, Wendy is actually going to be, can I say this?
Yeah.
Okay. Wendy's actually going to be staff on our suffragist centennial motorcycle ride this year, this August, providing we can all gather and ride motorcycles across the country. July 31st to August 23rd, we're going to have a nationwide ride celebrating the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote in the United States. And it's a suffragist centennial motorcycle ride, and Wendy's going to be with us coast to coast. So you can...
Hopefully we can meet a lot of you guys out there. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm super excited. Keeping my fingers crossed that the world returns to normal.
Yes, we all need to set the intention. And as a matter of fact, I hope everybody does show up for roll call tonight if you feel like networking, because we've got a big announcement in the gathering. So yay, thanks for tuning in. And next up is Trisha Zalewski. She is the editor of Women Riders Now, and she's going to talk to us about empowering your moto self, how to become a self-sufficient motorcyclist. So we'll see you in a few minutes. Take a break, get a drink of water, come back for another exciting presentation. Thank you so much. See you, everybody.
Thanks everybody.